Are you looking to level up your author business?
Are you pounding your head against a wall, wondering what your next step should be? Then join me, Daniel Wilcox.
And me, Sacha Black, as we haul ass each week in a bid to level up.
Level up!
Come along for the ride as we delve deep into the business of writing,
Craft,
entrepreneurship,
and every level of the author journey. This is the Next Level Author Podcast.
Hello, Achievers. Welcome to the Next Level Author Podcast, a podcast where we hold each other to account and track our step-by-step progress as we level up our author business. My name's Sacha Black, and here with me every week is...
Daniel Wilcox.
Hello.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We are back in the rhythm of doing a weekly podcast. So I now feel like I saw you last week, which obviously I did, but it doesn't feel like it's been forever since I saw you.
Does it count as a rhythm if it's 2 weeks? I'm just wondering how far you need to get the drum roll going before it counts as a drum roll. Because is it like, is that a drum roll? Or is it like,
yeah,
no, just questioning the premise.
Can you hear my
Something
cat
squeaking and it's adorable.
That is my cat. I'm really sorry. Okay, so well, everybody listening, we got a cat yesterday, a kitten, no less, and she is mewling in the background. So if you hear some cat noises, I'm sorry, we got a kitten.
I'm sure people are going to hate the fact that there's a kitten being cute in the background.
I know, right? Housekeeping. So tell me how your launch went, because you had a launch yesterday. Wait, was it yesterday? Yeah,
it was yesterday. Yeah. I know the days are all blurring into one. Yeah, no, it went pretty much to my expectations. I think it's one of those books that, like I say, it's a niche subject. So people who are searching for how to do collaboration things, I'm hoping will find it, and I'm putting in the wheels to make people find it. It's done okay. I've had really, really good feedback from people who have read it, and that's pretty much all I want at this point. And it's enough for me to, qualify me wanting to go on and write the next non-fiction project, which will be a bit more wider in scope and hopefully be able to be a bit more applicable to a wider reader base. But yeah, no, I'm happy with it. I'm really proud of. What I tried to focus on with this one was just basically expunging a bunch of info that I had stored up in me, and just making a nice book, and also playing around a little bit with Ingram. I've not used Ingram before, and I managed to use them for the paperback and the hardback. Again, never produced a hardback, so a lot of this was kind of playing around with some stuff, putting some stuff that I knew out there, and it was just considering that when did we first start talking about this? Like March, I think. I think it's probably beginning of March. I said that I might write a non-fiction. It wasn't on my calendar of things to produce this year. So all things considered, I'm really happy with how it went.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is that, no career is made off of one book. So I hope for you that this is the start of a very large back catalogue of non-fiction books for you.
That'd be so funny if you go on to Next Level Authors and you tell one of us that and we just go, huh?
Yeah.
What? How about yourself? How's your week been?
It's still so much of a blur. I think I'm just going to feel discombobulated until we have carpets in and all our belongings are in, and we're not sleeping on mattresses on the floor, and we're getting proper sleep. So I have slept really badly this week, and I'm trying very hard not to be grumpy.
Which is hard when you're tired. Is some of it because of the heat, do you think? Or
yes, very much so. Like, I have been waking up with sweat dripping off my body, and the previous owners of this house had air conditioning, and I kind of see why. We are going to have some fans installed in the bedroom and the living room. We have one working one in the living room, but it's ugly and huge. But these things haven't been done. Anyway, lack of sleep is really, really bad for me. It's really bad for everybody, but I take it really quite badly these days. And it's knocked me for 6 this week. And also, this was like my first proper week back in the driving seat, and so I don't know, like I did a lot of work, but also I still have Atlas around, and that's really hard. And then my mum took in for a couple of days, which was fantastic. And I could not believe quite how much work I got done in those 2 days. And that was very bittersweet, because it was fantastic that I got all that work done, but then it was also super frustrating, because I was like, this is how much work I could be getting done. And I like to achieve, I like to get things done, I like to work, I love my job, I like to work. Obviously, I like spending time with my son too, but I think we're all worked up to the point where we've all had too much time with each other, and everybody needs their routine back. My son needs his routine back. My son needs to go to school. So yeah, like it's been an odd week, and then obviously we added a new member to our family. So yeah,
why not? No, I do think it's important to, and you know, we mentioned this earlier this week in private messages, that it's bad enough going through all of this and trying to keep a routine and looking after a child, but you've obviously moved house as well. And I remember when I had Joanna Penn on the show on Great Writer Share, we were talking a lot about
drop.
Well, you know,
no,
she's a very smart woman, but she was mentioning about how she's got different places where she makes sure that she gets things done. So she'll do her fiction in one place and non-fiction in another place, and you've essentially presented yourself with this blank canvas of suddenly this house that you're not used to working in, and there is no association between your brain and the work and where you're doing it and what times and stuff. So that's always going to be a challenge to try and build that particular time when things are as turbulent as they are.
Yeah, and I can't is basically the answer, and that's not really helping me, because I really like routine, but until he goes back to school in September, I am still going to be in some kind of limbo, because I never know what day my mum will have him, or if she can't have him, and if she can't have him, I need to do something with him or entertain him. And realistically, on the days that she doesn't have him, I might get 2 hours to work, and I have to put 8 hours of work into 2 hours, and you can't. You can't. So
what we could do is I can get on the road, I can come down, I'll stay with you for a few days, and then we'll just alternate hours, and we'll just tag team.
That'd be amazing.
I don't mind playing Mario Kart.
Yeah, or just bring Bailey, and then they can entertain themselves.
That's another way around it. Yep.
That is actually a really good idea.
There we go.
Okay, right. Anyway, so once again, I am ill prepared, and we have to have a shout out of the week. So, what have you been enjoying this week?
I watched the Kevin Hart documentary, which I didn't know existed. So I don't know how much you know about all of his controversy.
Is he married to Pink?
No.
Oh, no. I swear she's married to somebody called Kevin Hart. I'm going to Google that while you talk.
Maybe they're two Kevin Harts. But basically, I'm a big fan of Kevin Hart, because he's one of these people that he pushes, he does stuff, he makes stuff happen, but he's not without his flaws. And there have been a couple of situations over the past few years where things have come out that have obviously been quite negative against him. Some accusations of homophobia that have then basically made him pull out of hosting the Oscars, and a whole debacle around that. Stuff about him, you know, being unfaithful to his wife and different pieces. So he's not like the most crystal clean person, but his work ethic is insane. But within this documentary, there's about, I think it's 6 episodes in which it kind of shows the full behind the scenes of what happened in a lot of those situations, how he handled it. And I think that, you know, despite the fact that he's done a lot of stuff that people would say, you know, just write him off, he's a terrible person, there's an admirable side of it. If you stop and listen, you can see a man who's constantly trying to improve and get better. And I like those journeys of people who can come out of the other side of things where, even if it's self-inflicted damage, and they manage to at least better themselves from it and make the other people around better because of it. So yeah, it's well worth a watch. It's 6 episodes, about 25 minutes each.
So really awkward. You can learn something new about me. I am terrible with names, and Kevin Hart is most definitely not married to Pink.
No.
However, Pink's husband is called Carrie Hart. So, you know, they do have the same surname. And Carrie, Kevin, it's not that far apart.
Don't justify it. You were wrong.
Yeah, I was 100% wrong. Also, they look completely different. And I now know exactly who Kevin Hart is. He's the American actor, funny guy, hilarious movies.
He's brilliant,
but yeah, wow, got that one really wrong. But anyway.
Yeah, that's what I've been watching.
Okay, cool. So I have not one that I've been watching, but I am going to show you. So I will describe it for people who are on listening instead. So I absolutely love Clever Fox journals.
Mm-hmm.
I am coming to the end of this Clever Fox journal. So this one was a quarterly journal, so it only lasts 3 months, and it really helped me get more productive. Unfortunately, to have them shipped in to the UK now is super expensive, so it makes each journal £45. And
Damn.
yeah, I just can't, I don't want to justify that. It feels ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to justify it. So instead, I'm going to go back to bullet journaling, which is what I did before, but I am basically going to copyright infringe Clever Fox by making my own custom version.
That's a nice.
It is, and I'm going to turn the light on so you can see the colour. So
it's purple.
It is so purple. And for those that don't know, my real name, I'm named after a moth, and this purple journal, which is in my purple, shade of purple, also has a silver moth on it. So that's why I got this one. So yeah, and the thing that I am recommending, the website that I got this Archer and Olive journal from is called misopaper.com, MISO paper.com. And Archer and Olive, Archer and Olive are also super expensive to import. Again, coming in at like £45. But Miso Paper has huge stock of it, and my friend's husband found the website. So all credit goes to Duncan. Thank you very much for telling me about that. And
so how much was that?
£25.
Okay, that's decent.
Yeah, so I don't mind spending £25 on a journal because I use them daily. So, so yeah, that was my thing that I liked.
Love it.
So weekly confessional, darling.
So my two from last week were, I'm going to launch my collaboration for author's book. So that was checked off. And then also committed to writing at least half of the second episode of When Winter Comes.
You not started it?
I think I was 2,000 words in. And each episode is basically 20,000 words, and I finished it.
So much right now. I know. I really hate you so much right now. I mean, I don't. Obviously, I love you, but also, fuck you.
I'm sorry. But the thing is, like, it's one of those that I was chipping away at it, and I've got other work that I basically put to the side.
Casual 18,000 words in a week. Yes, mate. Chipping away. That's it. You chip away.
Well,
that bad boy.
No, I put aside like some work that I should have been doing just because I got on the roll with it, and I was just like, I'm really, really enjoying the story. And I started a few things in motion because I basically the launch date is now Wednesday the 1st, which obviously is the day after this will air. So any horror fans, feel free to pick up episode 1 of When Winter Comes. If you're not a horror fan, please don't, because you screw up my algorithms. And so episode 2 I planned to release on the 15th, which obviously means that I have to start getting edited, start getting it proofread, all that kind of good stuff, and basically onto number 3, which will launch at the end of next month, because I just want to smash them out. And yeah, so that's all going. It's all happening, and I'm excited for it. I've built my ARC group up basically from scratch, because the last time I actually used an ARC group was a couple of years ago with another book, because everything else since then has been sort of with other people for different things. So I've started all that from scratch, but it feels good doing it from that clean slate and actually seeing it build up again.
Mm-hmm. I will be doing something very similar when I eventually get to writing fiction again. So technical question, where do we actually keep our tasks that we're meant to do each week? Because I fucking lose them every single week, and I come to it and I'm like, oh, what did I say again?
So they're in the show notes of every episode that we produce.
Right, okay, cool. So I'll so just casually...
Are you trying to remember what yours are? Yours were... Sacha
you
will finish.
You are such a dick. You wrote Sacha will... You are such a...
Sacha will finish her non-fiction
Right, okay. No, I can't believe you wrote that. You are not allowed to write the task ever. Okay, so for clarification for people listening, I actually went back and re-listened.
Changed my mind.
No. Oh, okay, right. So we had a domestic this week, our first domestic. in public with another one of our friends in a Facebook Messenger group over what our tasks were. But I did go back and re-listen to the episode just to make sure
it was literally like him messaging going, how's it going this week, guys? And then just literally exploding into, no, you said this, it was this. Oh no, forfeit time. And then literally being like, sorry, we'll take this to a private conversation.
As we then had a domestic over who had said what. Anyway, right, so I went back and listened to the episode, and what I actually said was, I will have done a significant portion, or a significant, I can't remember the exact word, basically a significant
The exact wording
amount.
was, I will finish or have done a significant portion.
Yes, or a significant portion, right.
So you basically just gave yourself a scapegoat.
I think I knew that I have my son all the time in the week, and that I might not be able to get it actually done.
Just need to be careful what you promise, because those forfeits are mean.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be really fucking careful this week. Yes, so I have done a significant portion. I have hit 7,000 words, so I am completely fine with that, because I've got until Tuesday to finish editing and finish the last 3K. So I will do that. That is not an issue. Might be to work really late, but I will do it. So that's fine. Right,
You're fine. I just like seeing you sweat.
You're so evil. One day you will get me, and I will get sweet motherfucking revenge when you do.
Bring it.
Okay, so personal update, I think we've kind of done. We need to delete one of those. We need to delete housekeeping so we don't get confused. So do we do comments now? Should we do comments now?
Let's do some comments now.
Okay, go on then. Yes. Over to you.
So last week's question was name 3 authors who are currently living the life that you want to live. And we had a slew of comments, so I'll just breeze through these as best I can. Ritu says Amanda Prowse, Kay Bratt, and Kylie Dunbar, who are all names that I'm unfamiliar with, but feel free to jump in. You don't know who
Amanda Prowse is? She's
name rings a bell.
Yeah, she's a big author. She's in all the supermarkets and stuff.
Yep. Maddie Williams says she has 4 because she's a rebel. Sacha Black, Dan Wilcox, and Jenna Moretti, which is 3. I'm joking. And then she added Stephen King as well, because who the hell wouldn't want to collaborate with Stephen King?
Me?
Pardon?
I don't think I'd want to. No.
Oh, come on. You learn so much.
Yeah.
Dude. Meg says Joanna Penn, and she needs to think of 2 more people right now because she hasn't had coffee, and I'm guessing she hadn't had a coffee after that comment. Edwin says Jay Thorne, Rachel Heron, and Paul Teague. Holly says Joanna Penn. She's a common factor amongst all this. Denise Duffield Thomas, and Meg Jolly, because of her fan base and how wonderfully engaged she is. Totally agree there. I'm jealous of that. Val Neal says Andrea Pearson from Six Figure Authors, Joanna Penn, and I think there was only 2 in that comment. Yeah, by the looks of it. Elaine Bateman says Brandon Ellis is living in a beachside house in Bali. Jealous. Craig Martell is making coin, and Michael Anderley is building his own house in Cabo. So, that's always to be admired. And then Jeff Adams, hey Jeff, says Joanna Penn, and looking at specific gay romance genre, also added TJ Clune and Lucy Lennox. So thanks everyone for getting those comments in. If you want to get involved, then jump over to the Facebook group or anywhere else that we're posting about and get your comments in.
Awesome. Okay, so it is our question of the week. I hope you're ready for this. So I can't seem to just ask one question.
Okay.
It is. Well, it's not really one question. Yeah,
question.
I know. I'm such a rebel. Right. What is your relationship with risk, and how do you manage it? I love that sigh every week. You're like, fuck the question.
So my relationship with risk, I think a big part of it depends on there are so many levels to this, because you've got personal risk, relational risk, financial risk, reputational risk. I But then you've also got, I think there are certain levels depending on whereabouts you are in the chain. So for example, when I first began writing, you risk anything because you've got nothing to lose. But the more you work your way through an author career, the more you get to a point where you have to be a bit more secure in the choices you're making. So if I'm writing horror, it's a risk to write romance. So I'm less likely to take a big risk like that. I think broadly speaking, I think I'm relatively okay with risks because I try and manage them as much as possible. Because if I am in a position where I know that I'm going to be taking a risk, so for example, I know that some of the stuff I'm working on at the minute is taken away from immediate money I could be making, but I'm taking a risk of investing time into other products that aren't making me money now, that I'm hoping will recoup money in the long run and basically make up the money that I've lost. And I think that in the past, I have been reckless with a lot of the stuff that I've done, and I've not really thought about the long game. And I might have thrown a lot of money at something without thinking what happens next. I might have stopped investing time or just my own learning in things because you're young and you decide to do something else and there's a new shiny object. Whereas now I think that a lot of what I do, and I mean a lot of what we all do if we do talk about sort of writing in this context, a lot of what we all do is pretty much every decision we make is a risk, because you're putting your reputation on the line with a brand new book, hoping that it's good. You're putting your finances on the line. If you're doing this full time, or if there's a big chunk of your personal life that depends on your finance, then that's also a risk, because you want to make sure that you're still providing for the people who are relying on you. If you're going down the route that I'm going, or if you're already on that route in which you're going to be publishing other people, you've obviously then got obligations towards those people. If you're hiring staff, and that kind of risk factor gets bigger. But I think I like the idea of calculated risks. I don't think I'll never say never, but I think I'd veer away a lot from if somebody basically just gave me this golden nugget and said, this could be everything, but I had no backing to say that was true. I'd be very, very cautious. I'm at the point where I need to see evidence. I need to see, if there is a lack of evidence, at least like enthusiasm and a plan. I'm that boring guy that I used to hate when I was at school, because like I hated the idea of having a business plan or anything like that. It all has to be exciting and you just roll down on this journey and what happens and whatever. And that's just not a reality that I live anymore. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it's just mostly because I've seen what can happen when you do look after your decisions and make the right decisions in the right way. So I think one rule, if we were to put some kind of practical advice, and I wouldn't pin specific numbers on this, but one thing that I would probably say, for example, is I would, I'm trying to think how best to say it. If I would basically put 30% of something on the table, if it was, a chance to lose a big chunk of money, I would probably put, for example, 30% on the table and gamble with what I'm comfortable gambling with. Maybe play with those edges a little bit, but then I would wait and see how successful that thing was before I then looked at where I would go from there. And I think I'm just a lot more anchored by data and evidence now to know what it is I need to move forward with when I'm making any kind of risk. I'm curious as to where this question's come from and what your answer is.
It came from nowhere. There was no rhyme or reason behind it, just because I've been writing a little bit about risk, because I think you can't really be a career author, and you can't really quit your job. You can't really be an indie author. You can't really be in this industry for a long time without, coming up against risk over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and that's probably where it came from. It sounds like you are getting more risk averse the older you get, because I'm sure the Dan who quit his job over a year ago must have been very comfortable with risk to have quit his job.
Yeah, to be fair, I think I feel like I've been a lot more comfortable with risk in the past, because I've not had anything that I've really wanted to anchor in and power through and make successful as much as this. So there was always something else that I could go to. I've had a lot of previous part-time jobs. I've worked in a bunch of different fields. I've never, without the sound cocky, I've never struggled to find work. So I've always been in a position in which if I take a risk in leaving a job, doing something else, whatever, that I know that I'd find a way around that. I think things changed a little bit when I had a kid, obviously, because you've got more to be responsible for. But I think more so because I'm in a position where I'm pretty much doing what I want to do, that this is what I want to plow ahead with.
Yeah, so I find that really interesting because knowing it was the words, something along the words that you said of knowing you would find another job, knowing, and I think that is a very, and I am going to be possibly sexist now, but I do think that's a very different mindset than a woman would have. So like for me, I have been employed since I was 13. I have never not worked, with the exception of my final term at university, where my family wanted to help me get a first-class degree, and so I concentrated on getting a first-class degree and quit working. And then I got a first-class degree. It's funny. Congrats. That. Yeah, thanks. But even though I have I have a degree and 2 masters, I have a fuckload of work-related qualifications, I am ridiculously employable, I still wouldn't leave work with that mindset. I'd be terrified I couldn't get another job. But anyway, I just find that really interesting. And I just wonder if that's a gender split, because I know there's all those studies that say, oh, men will apply to a job that they've got 50% of the skills for, but women will wobble over applying for a job they've got 70% of the skills for. Yeah. But anyway, okay, so what is my relationship with risk and how do I manage it? I have had an extremely volatile relationship with risk. So I didn't really understand risk until I was quite old. And I remember very distinctly being in, so Prince 2 is a project management qualification. I'm Prince 2 qualified. And I remember being in a training session, and I had been, relatively engaged with the course. And we got to the risk section, and I completely disrupted the whole class because I could not get my head around risk. And I just kept asking, and basically the teacher had to stop to more or less one-to-one explain it through. And I just remember this girl being really horrible to me and humiliating me in front of everybody because I couldn't get my head around risk. And I think it's because it's really weird because I'm a bit of a, juxtaposition when it comes to risk. For the most part, I don't really acknowledge risk, but not in a bad way. So like with the writing, I 100% knew that I could do this. And I knew that if I left my job, I wasn't confident that I could get another job, but I was confident I could make this work. So for me, it didn't feel like much of a risk, but when to leave my job, but when I talk to other people about quitting, it is like, oh, you've got a good job. Like, and I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, of course I did. Like, I knew I could, I was making this and here are all the numbers. So for me, I think perhaps it's because I don't make, it's so weird because I feel like I don't make decisions unless I am 100% sure I'm going to be okay with them, and therefore the risk is managed, and therefore there is no risk. But it's all relative and it's very perspective driven. So Chloe, for example, is much more risk averse than me. Like, she manages risk in her job because she's a manager and she has a department and she has budgets. But she would never quit her job to work self-employed because she likes the consistency of income. So yeah, I find it really weird. And I think deep down, I quite like the pressure of risk. Like, I'm a bit sick like that. It is a lot of pressure, but I kind of like the pressure because I feel like, well, I just have to make the money and that's it. That's the end of it. I have to make it happen and therefore it will happen. So there is no risk. I don't know. This is why I'm saying it's this weird juxtaposition in which I just don't acknowledge risk, but not in a naive, I know damn well if I don't make the money, I'm not going to pay my bills. I am acutely aware of that pressure, but it just doesn't, I don't know. It's so hard for me to explain, but yeah, this is why I say I have a volatile relationship with it, because some things that people see as very significant risks, I just don't.
Well, I think there's a big element you said there of basically you were very, very prepared mentally. You knew what it was you're going into. You'd been doing this aside your other job as well. And, a lot of the world, particularly people that have never worked within self-employment and done stuff themselves before, so many people just don't get that. And it is a terrifying thing, because the model that you're driven to believe in the most when you're going through school is the whole employed model, because that's basically what the school prepares you for. So to be into a thing like this, like, I know that my mum is constantly just phoning me up, just being like, you are okay though. You're not lying to me. Like, you're okay financially. You're doing this. I'm like, yes, I'm fine, mum. But I think also, if I may be so bold as to speak a little bit to your journey as well as mine, because I think there are some similarities in that there's an element of, I know what going back or what staying in my old job would have meant to me. And I was in a position where things happened, not going to explicitly go into it, but I basically just threw my toys out of the pram and was like, this is it. This is time. Like, I don't care whether this writing thing works or not. I'm going to leave this job. I'm going to try and make the writing thing work. I'm probably going to have to find something else in the meantime, but I just need to get out of here because I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. And I know that I will be happier without all of this extra baggage around it. And I know that you had,
even if you have to manage all the risk, like that's the thing, you will be happier even if you have to manage,
because it's you telling yourself off, as opposed to hopefully no one on listening to this used to work with me, but not people above you who are clearly underqualified for the position they were in, trying to tell you and put pressure on you, and you being like, are you fucking kidding? At least you're confident in your own knowledge and you are managing all of your own risks, and that's such a different feeling to having someone that you passionately disbelieve in.
I really like that management of knowing I am solely responsible for bringing in my half of the mortgage, my half of the gas and electric, or whatever. I love that pressure, that risk, that, or whatever is it risk? I don't know it. But anyway,
it's all risk. You argue the entire thing is risk because it is.
Yeah. But so I have a sort of a sick, twisted relationship with it, and I kind of like it in a weird way.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting question this week.
Did you have a part 2?
No, it was what is your relationship with risk and how do you manage it?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So it was like a 1.5 question. I'm getting closer to
I think
one.
just to sum up my bit then, like, I think in terms of managing it, there's an amount of preparedness, but obviously with certain situations you can only prepare so far. So I think it's when you reach the end of your preparedness that the risk then comes, and it's how you respond to that and how you deal with that. And I think it's obviously very, very individual, and it depends what the circumstances are. But I like to think that I'm more focused on the risks that I will take, as opposed to risks that will derail me from the current trajectory that I'm trying to push myself on.
Yes, I love that so much, because I am exactly the same. I don't really, I choose to focus on the risks that I'm taking for the positive, rather than the possible outcomes that could happen that are bad. I don't even allow them in my mental space, because it's just wasted.
What's the point?
Exactly. But, and this is, it's so interesting. This is what I used to hate about project management, is that you would have to focus on mitigating, mitigating the hypothetical risks that could or could not happen. And you'd be like, and oh my God, I'm having like an epiphany. Oh, this is amazing. That is why I used to hate them. Oh my God, Dad.
You're welcome.
I'm like, my brain is just shattering into 1,000 million pieces right now. Yeah, that is why I used to hate it, because I like to focus on the positive risk, not the negative risk, because I'm not going to allow the negative risk to happen, one, and two, you know, we might as well focus on the positive things and make those happen. That's why I used to hate project management risk, because you did have to focus on the negative and mitigating those, whereas I just don't allow them in my headspace. That has really
part of my old role, I was a marketing manager, and therefore I had to look after the social media side of things, and I had like a team to deal with that. And it was very, very similar in that obviously social media is, you know, explosive most of the time. It's difficult to get right, but there was such a fear from people of the negatives that basically, rather than putting out something positive or something that would connect with an audience, it was just always no, let's think about this for 3 hours, what we're going to put, and then it would come out and it would still get deleted anyway, because you can't put anything on social media about someone having problems with it. So that you just get to a point where you're just like, just come on, just push forward and do some good. And it doesn't happen. Good question.
Yeah, I love this question, even if I did ask it myself. Okay, how are we leveling up our business this week?
Oh, I never prepared for this. Okay. Well, I've got a launch next week. That suddenly dawned on me. I'm gonna launch that book, and I'm gonna start through the process of editing. Actually, I'm gonna do that launch, and what I'm gonna do is, because I've got a couple of things that are basically built up on like the client side, I'm going to clear those because they're blocking my mental space from my other stuff, and I need to clear that palette.
Yeah, I understand that fully. So I will be handing off 2 books to Jay. Yay! And even though I am shitting myself about handing these books off, I just you know, that's why I've been like delaying editing the first one, because I just don't want to hand it over because I'm scared.
You're fine. There's a good book on it.
It's the risk.
It's a risk, but there's a good book on collaboration that will help you if you need to smooth out anything.
Oh, it's funny. I think I've read that one actually. Okay. So I am going to hand over those 2 books, and then I am going to make sure my quarter 3. Shit, is it quarter 3? It's quarter 3 already.
It is.
So my quarter 3 goals are all, I know. My quarter 3 goals are all set and organized, so I know what I'm doing. And that's mostly straight in my head because I did that a bit before, but I just want to formalize it. Mm-hmm. That's 2 things. And
careful what you wish for.
I'm just going to leave that there, I think, only because I will do other stuff, but I don't know where my son's going to be, so I don't know how much other stuff I'm going to do. So the quarter goals and handing off the books. And
when your son goes to school and things are somewhat normalized again, you realize you're really going to have to like pick up these tasks.
Game. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I'm excited for that.
I am not. Okay, audience question of the week. What is your relationship with risk, and how do you manage it?
Beautiful.
Alrighty, and we will see you next week.
See you later. Hungry for more?
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of my angelic accent and Dan's dulcet tones on our other podcasts.
For more of me, check out the Great Writers Share podcast.
For more of me, listen to the Rebel Author podcast. We'll be back next week holding each other to account as Dan
and Sacha
become
next level
authors.